Welcome to the IBMS Lothian and Borders podcast.
Is there enough bagpipe in that? Hello, my name is Mike Gray and I'd like to welcome you to the IBMS Lothian and Borders branch podcast. What's all this about, you might ask? Well, for those of you listening who don't know, the Institute of Biomedical Science, which is the professional body for biomedical scientists in the UK, has branches in all corners of the country, and in the southeast of Scotland, where Edinburgh and the Borders sit, we have a branch. So this podcast was an idea from the branch committee to look at, in the first instance, at career stories of biomedical scientists. Why career stories? There is a lot of information out there on how to get into biomedical science, and there are some podcasts that focus on scientific topics. But from a people perspective, we often get very useful talks from senior individuals in the profession. And as interesting as they are, the committee hit upon the idea of listening to all levels of staff involved in biomedical science with the aim of capturing the stories of professionals you might not necessarily hear from, and to look at all stages of the career ladder. So each story, we hope, will be inspirational. Each story will have a message, and if anything, will highlight the myriad of ways that people get into biomedical science. So if you like stories and finding out about people, then stick around. What could possibly go wrong? Hello. So I'm here now with Lena Forsyth. Hello, Lena.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm fine. Can you tell folks where you work and what it is you do?
Yeah, so I work at Aberdeen Royal Infirmary and I am a biomedical scientist in the Immunology lab there.
Okay. So if we go back, and I'm tending to ask this question to everybody now, if you go right back to the very, very beginning, when, well, as young as you like, what thought process did you go through to say, do you know what, I want to go and work in immunology?
I guess we're going to go quite far back.
Oh, let's go far back.
Yeah, we're going to go all the way back to 2001. So I was the summer of 2001. So I was 7 months old about that time. And I was starting to become unwell as a little baby.
Okay.
And back and forth to the doctors. And then I ended up getting admitted to the hospital in Aberdeen Royal Infirmary. And then I was diagnosed with a rare genetic disease called cystinosis. And throughout my life since then, I've been looked after really well by doctors and nurses in the healthcare team at Aberdeen, well, the kids' hospital, and then now the adults' hospital. So I'd always been surrounded by that, and also surrounded by other science and hearing about research and stuff into my disease. So it's quite a small community. So you hear about what's going on through the charity that's set up in the UK. And kind of at that point, and when I was at school, I was really enjoying science. And so if we fast forward a little bit further to about when I was about 14, I discovered the role of a biomedical scientist, just kind of scrolling through what to do with my life thing in a PSE class and having a look at the science section and the biology section, because that was what I was like into, and thought, oh, I might want to do something related to that once I leave school. And the biomedical scientist popped up. And when it kind of explained that what the role was, you're in a lab testing patient samples, helping get diagnoses, helping monitor diseases, I was like, hang on, this fits a puzzle piece that I've been missing for a while. So obviously I've had so many blood tests and went to the doctors all the time, and still go to the doctors all the time and get blood tests done. And I always was really curious about what happened to this little tube of blood, or quite a few little tubes of blood that went away to a lab somewhere in the depths of the hospital. No one knew much about what happened other than blood and urine turned from blood and urine into numbers, and those numbers.
And doctors and nurses test it for you.
Well, where they just went to the lab, and no one really told us what happened at that point. So I was curious, and as soon as I found out what the word biomedical scientist and what that was, I was kind of hooked from that point.
Wow. Right. Okay. So, excuse me. You're the first one I've spoken to who's had something happen in their childhood where there's been an appreciation or a notice, if you like, of samples being taken from them and wondering where they go. Okay, so we fast forward to you're about 14 and you're thinking and you found websites and that kind of stuff and clearly you're at school at that point. Did that influence what qualifications you took from that point onwards?
It definitely did. So when I was looking at those pages, I was reading about how I get to that. How do I get to the point of becoming a biomedical scientist? Like, what do I need to do next? So at 14, I was away to choose my subjects to go into do my national fives and then my hires and advanced hires at school. So based on that, I kind of looked at what I needed to take and took those subjects. It was probably what I was going to take anyway, because it was what I enjoyed at school. And then I did my national fives and got decent grades in there. Did my hires, did okay, but not as well as I was expecting. And during my 6th year at school, I did advanced higher biology and chemistry. And one day a week, I went to Fraserburgh College to do a science course. And also in the evenings, I went to 9 weeks or something at Robert Gordon's University. Mm-hmm. So it was like an outreach access course where I got to do lots of fun science stuff and get a taster of what it would be like to go to university and either study one of their courses, which one of them was biomedical science or forensic science or things like that, and get a taster for that. So that's kind of what my 6th year kind of incorporated, doing all these things, and that kind of definitely decided that that's what I wanted to do. My next step was to go to university and study to become a biomedical scientist and get through those hoops to get there, sort of thing.
Yeah. So you went to Robert Gordon's, yeah?
Yes, that's right.
All right, okay. And is that an accredited? I think it is. It's an accredited degree course, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So I studied there for 4 years, and it's an accredited course. So during that time, I did my placements to get my registration portfolio. But that was also during COVID, so we had a bit of a mismatch of placements being moved around and the course kind of changing a little bit to be able to get us through that and get us accredited at the end. So yeah, that was fun.
Right. Okay. So and what discipline when they do a placement from Robert Gordon's, where do they send you in the lab?
So in 2nd year, you go on a multidisciplinary placement. So you've got 6 weeks in the labs during one of your semesters, which is like half a semester. And then each week you rotate around all the different labs. So you go to hematology, biochemistry, pathology, and histocytology, micro, what am I forgetting? Blood transfusion, all those ones for a week. And then you do bits and bobs your portfolio then. And then it's supposed to be in 3rd year that you then specialize and you do one manual for 6 or 7 weeks, and then you do one automated lab for 6 or 7 weeks.
Okay.
For me, that was in 4th year because of COVID. But so when I did my more specialized placement, I did it in hematology and immunology for the 6 weeks then.
Right. Okay. So is there a direct correlation then between where you did the majority of it and what you fancied doing?
Yeah, so whilst I was at uni and kind of my interest was more blood sciences sort of based, so I was like, I really, really liked hematology, as you can see from behind me. I've got some red blood cells in the corner.
You got red blood cells in a picture?
Yeah, and I really liked hematology and loved that module that I did at uni and enjoyed that placement as well. And I ended up working there part-time as a student in the evenings. And I also quite enjoyed immunology, and I liked the mix of the manual and the automated kind of side of things, because immunology in the setting of the university was based as a manual lab. So that was, you either picked immunology, pathology, or micro as your manual lab. And I got immunology. It wasn't my first choice, but that's where I ended up.
Stop. What was your first choice?
Micro.
Yay!
But I didn't get it because everyone wanted to go to micro. So I ended up with immunology, which I guess in a roundabout way was fine, was good. And yeah, I liked kind of the mix of everything there. And it's a very small lab. So yeah, it's a different vibe.
Yeah,
so one of the bigger labs like hematology and path and all in micro as well.
Right. You get on well with Robin Gunn, who's the head of lab in Fife.
I've never.
Have you never met her? No. Robin's got a hemoglobin molecule tattoo.
Oh, cool.
I'll tell you said that. Well, she might be listening to this. Who knows? Okay. So you've done your placement and you graduate, yes?
Yes.
And then, is it the case that you're looking for a job?
So, yeah, at that time when I'm finishing uni, so before I even going back to the graduation thing, I guess at uni I worked quite hard and I got the portfolio prize for our branch, and I also got the president, and I got the president's prize from the IBMS as well. So
well done.
That was a nice icing on the cake. And yeah, then around about that time I was applying for jobs, generally kind of staying in the vicinity of Aberdeen because I didn't really want to move away from here, although I did apply for one in Dundee as well. And I applied for a couple. I applied for immunology in Dundee was my first one I went through. I did actually get offered the job there, but I didn't take it because I wasn't so keen on moving at that point. Then I interviewed for the job I currently have in immunology, and I got that one. I also interviewed for hematology, but was unsuccessful at that point as well. So yeah, ended up being that immunology was where it kind of worked out.
Right. Okay. So when did you start there in immunology?
It would have been August 2022.
Wow. Right. Okay. So in terms of, because we'll get into for the dear listeners what immunology is in a minute, but for the biomedical scientists listening or anybody that's looking at a career journey, so you're at the stage now of, I'm suspecting, thinking about you're in the middle of or have done your specialist portfolio. Is that?
I did start working on it a while back, but just due to some other things that's been going on, I've had to take a pause on that. But it's there, it's in progress, and I am thinking about it.
Okay. But specialist level is where you're heading in immunology?
Hopefully, yes.
Oh, excellent. All right, okay, cool. Right. Let's change tack slightly. So, when you go into work, tell the people that are listening what it is you do. What is immunology?
So, immunology is looking at patients who they might be seeing if they have some sort of autoimmune disease that they need to have a look for some antibodies for. It could be something to do with their complement, so they could be having some sort of reaction to something, and their complement might be a bit off due to whatever reason, which is to do with like inflammation and stuff like that. You could be looking at allergies, so a patient might have eaten something, or if it's this time of year with pollen and stuff, they may be seeing that they've got some sort of allergic reaction, hay fever type thing as well. So looking at the antibodies associated with that. Also helping to monitor HIV patients with their levels of cells in their blood and their CD4 levels, and looking at immune monitorings as well. So making sure that T cells are all good in patients' blood, especially with those who have like MS, just monitoring their B cells.
Okay, yeah.
And it's quite varied. We do a bit of manual stuff, so we're either doing some manual ELISAs, or quite a lot of it now is automated on big machines that do them for you. We do some flow cytometry for the immune monitorings and CD4 counts, and we do some immunofluorescence. So we get slides and we stain them, and you have a look down the microscope to see if they're positive or negative. So I like the immunofluorescence side of things, because it's quite nice to have a look down a microscope.
Oh, yeah, I've done plenty of that. Some of it very badly. Dispel this myth for me then. So nothing urgent ever happens in immunology.
Well,
Ooh, controversial.
I guess not hugely urgent, but our vasculitis or ANCA sort of vasculitis or things
And
can be quite urgent.
ANCA stands for, sorry, I'm not a portfolio assessor.
ANCA, hang on, I've just had a mind blank. We might have to use the donut.
Is it anti-neutrophil cytoplasmic antibody?
Something. Anti-neutrophilic cytoplasmic antibody. Yeah.
And I'm a bacteriologist. 10 out of 10 for me.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
No, not at all. Not at all. Because we get wrapped up in whether it's an EIA or whether it's an ANCA or whatever, and you know, I know more acronyms than I know the expansions of acronyms, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, you just say the acronym and you're like, oh, what does it actually mean?
Right, okay. So, if you don't mind me asking, you mentioned you were ill when you were younger.
Mm-hmm.
Are you happy to tell us about that story? And I guess, in a way, how does that blend in with how you work? Are there any adjustments that need to be made? And how does the workplace look after you?
Yeah, so my disease affects mainly my kidneys and my eyes at the moment.
Okay. So
due to that, the cystinosis is, I'll kind of explain what it is, and then that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, please.
I have to do. So cystinosis is the buildup of a crystal of amino acid cysteine in the cells. So it gets all trapped because this transporter doesn't work in the lysosomes, and it gets all trapped and crystallizes up, which then causes cells to die, basically. And it firstly kind of affects your kidneys. So I have to drink quite a lot of water, and I have another syndrome attached to that called Fanconi syndrome, which means I lose quite a lot of salts and stuff through my kidneys. So they're just got a bit of a leaky kidney, basically. And so I have to take a load of medication for that, and I take medication for the actual disease itself. So trying to get what's getting stuck in my cells through a different transporter so it doesn't block everything up. So I have to take medication at pretty strict times. So one of them is every 6 hours, 4 times a day. So that has to be incorporated into my work day, obviously. So I have to take it at a specific time at lunchtime. And so I have to take breaks at specific times. I also have to drink quite a lot of water, which is not very convenient when you're in a lab. But you kind of learn to get around that and have water very nearby that I can go and grab a drink whenever I need and take little micro breaks sort of thing.
Right. Okay.
I also attend quite a few hospital appointments. So it's having that understanding that, yeah, I might have to nip out to go get my bloods tested down the corridor, or I might have an appointment. So I either have to finish a little bit earlier or start a little bit later, whatever.
Oh, that's handy. So do you get blood taken at work? Yeah.
Yeah, I just go to the clinic down. It's just like a couple zones down from where the labs are, and go get my bloods taken and taken back up, because one of them has to get transported to Leeds. So I'd have to go to the main hospital to get it tested anyway. I can't get it done in like a GP, because then it wouldn't get enough time to get to where it needs to go.
Okay. Is that I'm really going to embarrass myself here. Is it so L-cysteine homo? Can't remember. Is that the test?
Well, I call it leukocyte cell white cell cysteine.
Ah, right. Okay.
I don't really know much about it. Although my doctor says it's very tricky to do, but I've never actually.
Special transport conditions or something to. I'm sure biochemists will be writing in telling us stop being stupid. Stop trying to talk about it.
Yeah, biochemists, please tell me what they do.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it has to be there within a certain time period, and obviously from Aberdeen to Leeds, it's quite a drive. So, yeah.
All right.
They don't do it anywhere. They don't do it anywhere in Scotland, so Leeds is the closest you can get. So,
is it fair to say then? So, pretty much from the ages of about 7 to now, you've kind of
7 months.
7 months. Sorry, apologies. Of course, yes. 7 months to now, you've kind of lived on the Forrester Hill site in Aberdeen.
Pretty much, yeah. It's basically like a second home almost.
So you wouldn't have much problem with the induction then?
No, not really. I knew my way around fairly well.
Okay. And I guess for the people that are listening as well, is the reason that we're laughing a bit about water in the lab is that labs are dirty on the inside and clean on the outside, so you can't drink in a lab. People wondering, why can't you just take a sip of, just have a drink of water in the lab? Like, you're not at a desk, are you? So on a day-to-day basis, you're wearing personal protective equipment.
Yeah, got a lab coat and gloves on most of the time.
Most of the time. And eye shields if needed.
If needed, yes.
If needed, yeah. Right, okay. In terms of your development beyond this then, so let's talk a wee bit about the future.
Okay.
Where would you like to be in the profession?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I was thinking about this not long ago. Like, where do you want to see yourself in 5 years? I would like to have some sort of role in sort of training or teaching, because that's what I'm into outside of the lab, because I do some like STEM outreach with a local charity up in Aberdeen as well, and I've always loved kind of that side of things and being involved with like student placements, and I did some stuff with helping the younger generations of the students coming through whilst I was at university. So something like that is what I'm interested in. Or even if I end up more in, well, I'm obviously keen to see how the research for my own disease progresses. So if I end up something like stem cells or I don't know, something that way, we'll just see. I just kind of taken it as it is, and immunology is what I'm doing right now, and we'll figure it out as we go. I'm obviously on the IBMS Scotland panel. That's how we know one another.
Yes.
I enjoy being involved with that sort of stuff as well. So maybe I'd roll within the IBMS in the future. Who knows?
Oh, of course. But of course, you will have thoughts about biomedical science can be a career for the rest of your life. You can do it that way. You can go into management, I guess. Or you quite interestingly said there, the science of it really interests you. So is clinical science or research been something that you've thought about in the past?
It has been something that's kind of been in my head for a while, but it's just figuring out how you even get in, where to begin in that field. So when I graduated uni, I'm like, well, if I take a role as biomedical scientist and that's my starting block, and then we'll see what happens from there. Maybe I end up somewhere more research based. I don't know. We'll just see what comes.
Of course, you've got plenty of time. What do you think about, so from the ages of 7 months to where you are now, you've been at Forster Hill and you've been around healthcare professionals, etc. How easy do you think it is for people who haven't had that exposure to know what to do? How do you think younger folk these days find out about, I quite fancy working in a lab? And what would you do to help them?
Good question. That's a tricky one. So
imagine yourself, for example, that you hadn't been in hospital.
Yeah, it's difficult to imagine.
I'm sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
I guess this would have been something that I wouldn't really even probably come across as easily as I did, or wouldn't have been so drawn to it, I guess. But yeah, it's things like this, I suppose. And if someone who's thinking about what they want to do once they leave school hears a podcast like this, or trying to get some visibility on healthcare scientists and biomedical scientists actually exist in the hospital system, in schools, and educating people that what happens in the lab is done by these very well-educated, well-trained, really inspiring people who you don't see every day, but we're there working behind the scenes, making the NHS work. Like, one of those sayings I have is basically the biomedical scientist profession is the backbone of the NHS. Without us, 75% of diagnoses couldn't occur.
Yeah.
And so it's really important, and it's not as well known as it should be. And we just need to stand up and scream and shout about what we do to make sure people hear about it, and that the next generation knows that there is potentially a career path there. You don't have to go in. Healthcare isn't just all doctors and nurses. There is people behind the scenes doing good work.
I'm all for screaming and shouting. The STEM work that you do. So tell me about that. What have you been involved in?
I also work for a STEM outreach charity called TechFest, who's based up in Aberdeen. I started working for them.
You better tell people what STEM stands for.
Oh, sorry. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and maths. It's help. They're basically TechFest's role, and that is they helped promote science, technology, engineering, maths to the public and kids. So they run festivals at different times of year. So the first exposure I had to TechFest and my first experience working for them was at their festival, which was like summertime. I think it was August to begin with. And this was just before I started university. So I went and helped at this festival, and it was basically me escorting groups of kids around all the different classes they were going to. So schools from like Aberdeen City and Shire would come here, get loads of different exposure to different STEM subjects, so they can go to different classes about different things that they wouldn't maybe get that opportunity to do in school, or it helps build on their curriculum, whatever they're doing at school. And since then, for the last 6 years now, I've been involved with them. So I either help at that event. So now, instead of escorting people around, I am the person teaching the lesson. So I'm given a resource that is developed by TechFest, and then I deliver that lesson. So one of the ones I did that was 2 years ago was about digestion. So the whole process was you had a banana sandwich, you made a little banana sandwich, and you had some kitchen equipment, and you basically demonstrated how you digest food using this banana sandwich and kitchen equipment. So you would go through the chewing the sandwich.
Mastication.
Chewing it up with by cutting it up with a knife and then putting it in a bowl and chewing it more with a mashed potato, and you'd go through the process till you had poo. So it's fun and engaging for the little kids as well. And they also have lots of other little events going on throughout the year. I'm going to go help with one this weekend out in the city centre. And they've got some other fun stuff coming up in September as well. So
that's a great way, isn't it? I mean, you've had the fortune or misfortune, depending on how you look at it, let's be honest, of being exposed to the questions that you wanted answered early in your life, which is what happens to an example. Where does all this information come from? But I suppose you're already giving back. I mean, you're only a couple of years into your career here, and you're already potentially creating another generation.
Yeah, I hope so anyway. It's nice to do, because obviously, it's nice to be able to go and speak to people and tell them what you do. And this year, the science festival, the tech festival that I was working at, I had an IBMS stall. So I had the headsets from Colbarth Square up and was demonstrating that to them, and it was taken very well. And it was one of those things that is such a large scale event in Aberdeen. You get such a big exposure,
right? Okay,
to kids from literally like 5 years old all the way up to teenagers, and explaining that what you do to them is quite exciting. And for them to stand and dress up in a lab coat and then you hear them saying, "I want to be a scientist when I grow up too," is just excellent. Such a nice thing.
That's so cool. Yeah, we had an open day, which is something we've never done before for the lab. So unfortunately, we had to restrict it to NHS employees because there are certain hoops that you have to go in order to take a member of the public, as you know. You can't just say, come on, let's go and have a look at my lab. But under controlled conditions, we had some people come into the lab, and it was fully booked.
Wow.
And believe it or not, these were colleagues that have worked in the NHS, nurses, doctors, estates workers, facilities workers, porters. Every brand of NHS worker came to have a look and were completely fascinated by what they saw. I mean, that's something for folks to consider, is doing an open day if you can. You could do that.
It's an idea.
I'm just giving you.
Noted.
I'm just giving you an
Noted.
idea. So we did it on Biomedical Science Day. And
I think I saw some of that. I follow Isla.
I think we had 138 people came round, and all the slots were booked. So I'm pretty sure Jim, your clinical director, will let you do that.
I'll maybe mention it to Glenn and see what like.
Brilliant. Well, that's a fascinating story. Thanks for sharing it with me. You've accomplished so much in such a short time.
Thanks. Yeah, it's one of those things that I wouldn't be here and functioning and happy without the work of biomedical scientists. So it's quite nice to be able to give back and work in a profession that's done so much for me in my life so far.
Yeah. Before we finish, I've been asking everybody the last question, and of course we can edit this out if it's really bad. But
okay.
Does anything fun ever happen in the lab?
Anything fun? Would you? I guess we get some interesting requests for allergies now and again.
Okay.
The one that sticks out to me is allergic to curly fries. I'm like, well, there is some validness there. So they could be allergic to the potato or the stuff that's on the curly fries, but you need to be a little bit more specific, guys. What do you want? Potatoes? Spicy stuff?
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're coding allergies and looking at what they actually want, it's kind of quite funny.
Allergic to curly fries. I'm also, I think maybe later in this series of podcasts, I'm going to open up to what's the best clinical detail that you've ever seen.
Oh,
right, but maybe not today. I have to think about how we do that without identifying people.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Lena. That's been fascinating, and that's it. We'll say cheerio to everybody. Bye.
Bye.